Hello everyone, welcome to episode 13 of the most educational chess speedrun on YouTube. My name is Alex and I'm a 2000 rated over-the-board chess player, and in this series we are playing rapid games on chess.com going from 1000 to 2000 elo, and I will be explaining my thought process as best as I possibly can during the game for your education and entertainment, and we will then analyze the game after we finish. Hopefully it all goes well. My opponent has just played bishop to e2 against the Caro Kann. The Caro Kann being one of my favorite openings ever. I don't think I've ever seen this move. I assume he wants to put it on f3, but of course we're going to play d5 because that's the entire point of the Caro Kann. I have got two playlists that will be linked below. One of them will be all of the episodes previously of this most educational chess speedrun on YouTube series. The other playlist will be every video on my channel where I play the Caro Kann Defense. So check either of those out if you're interested after this video. And we'll see what my opponent does, because I don't understand this move. Of course, we should take back with the pawn. Taking with the queen would just lead to moves like knight to c3 and bishop to f3. And we're not playing a Scandinavian here. If we wanted to play a Scandinavian, we would have already done it. So my opponent's essentially transposing here to an exchange Caro Kann setup, which, yeah, okay, with the knight on f3, bishop e2 makes a little bit more sense. However, normally, the way this goes in the exchange Caro Kann is after e4, d4, d5 takes, knight f3, if bishop to g4, then bishop e2. But because I haven't committed my bishop to the g4 square, I think I can probably put it on the f5 square. Because normally, a lot of the time, h3 gets played to stop bishop to g4, and this bishop will instead come to the d3 square. I will show you what I consider to be the best setup for white against the exchange Caro Kann. This isn't quite it from my opponent. I think his move order is wrong. You shouldn't commit the bishop to the e2 square unless my bishop comes to the g4 square. Just because it's kind of passive. It's kind of passive, and we control this very nice diagonal. We will play knight to f6. My opponent goes bishop to g5, and I think we just go e6. Although we could play knight to e4, putting pressure on the bishop. But I think just knight e4, bishop f4, there may be a case for the move g5, trying to like sack this pawn to go rook g8 and target the g2 square. But then my opponent's bishop can just come to the f3 square, and then it's actually quite good. So I don't want to allow that. Let's just play the move e6, keep things nice and simple. Probably going to go bishop to e7 and castle. We could put the bishop on d6. That is completely fine. This pin is kind of annoying, but there are lines where we can let our opponent take and take back with the pawn to open up the g file for our rook. That wouldn't be completely unheard of. My opponent goes knight to h4, targeting my bishop. So I think I'll probably just drop the bishop back to g6, and if takes, I have a very nice open h file for my rook, and I can line it up with the bishop on the h2 square when white probably castles kingside. Now we could go bishop to e4, but I think just knight d2 chases our bishop away, so I don't think it's all that impressive. So let's drop back to g6. Now, one of the benefits of white forcing my bishop back to g6 like this is that I can't really play the move h6, because then if my opponent takes, I have to take with the f-pawn, and that really hurts my pawn structure. But he voluntarily goes for this, which opens my rook up very nicely. I don't think there was any need for my opponent to commit to that decision there. He could have waited, he could have done something else. Here, he probably could have just played the move knight d2, and continued the game. Because again, I can't play the move h6. I'd probably have to go bishop to e7, and the game continues. This, however, is very, very nice. And also, if my opponent ever takes, it doesn't damage the structure particularly anymore. It will probably wander over there by itself to leave the h-file open for the rook. So I'm going to go bishop to d6, take control of this very important diagonal, even if my opponent plays a move like h3, so that my rook no longer connects with the h2 pawn. It's still incredibly dangerous for him to castle because of moves like bishop c7 and queen to d6. We actually had a kind of similar position to this in a previous episode of the speedrun. I can't remember which episode it was, but we had a relatively similar position, which was very, very interesting. I think Queen c7, there's a good case to be made for. We also dominate the e5 square then, which is typically white's plan to put a knight on e5. This bishop still kind of sucks because, I mean, even if the bishop went to the f3 square though, it would still kind of suck. I also like the move Queen c7 because we potentially prepare the move knight to e4, putting pressure on the bishop, and the bishop can't come to f4, where it would probably like to go. So that's pretty nice. Let me just think a second. Yeah, I think I like this move. Like I say, if my opponent takes, we just take back, and we're all good. We can probably follow that up with king f8, king g7, so that our king defends the f6 pawn. The f6 pawn controls these important dart squares in the center, and we have a very comfortable position. A pawn being on f6 could also support an e5 push later on in the game. Don't be afraid of having your pawns doubled just because they're doubled. If they're doubled and it actually weakens your position, then maybe don't let them be doubled. But here, no, it's fine. My opponent is free. Okay, okay. I think knight to e4 is the move I want to play. And I'm already looking at tactics of taking on g3. I'm absolutely looking at tactics. Let me think a second. We could even consider taking on f2 in some lines. Okay, bishop e3 makes that a bit more difficult. But there are lines where we can do like bishop g3, and you can't take with the h-pawn because of rook h1. So bishop g3, pawn g3. We can't take with the queen, of course, but we can take with the knight, and my opponent can't take back because of rook h1. He could play bishop f1 defending, but then, I just take on g3 with the queen. We get 3 pawns for the piece and a massive initiative. That's, of course, better for us. So, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes. We attack the rook. If the rook moves to g1, we can take... Oh, no, we can't take on h2 because it's defended by the knight. Okay, that doesn't quite work. Maybe we go knight to e7, intending to rotate it to f5, and then we do have threats of taking on e3, and after takes, we take on g3, and the pawn can't take because of the pin. That looks very, very nice. Very, very nice. Let's do it. And if my opponent gives a check on this diagonal, I will just go king to f8. Like I said before, I don't want to castle kingside, right? Because my rook is very, very nice. Bishop d3 is a logical move. And I also don't want to castle queenside because my king's a little bit exposed on the queenside. Moves like c4 could be an issue. Bishop d3 makes a whole lot of sense. He's kind of threatening to take the knight. I would get the d5 square for my knight there, which would be pretty nice, but we could consider the move knight to f5. If takes, then we just take on e4 and we attack the knight and attack the bishop, and we have a lot of threats there. Let's do it. You can see how all our pieces are converging onto the dart squares of my opponent's position right now. I haven't done anything crazy here, and even if this attacking idea doesn't work, we still have a nice initiative, right? Our pieces are still placed, maybe not optimally, but very, very nicely. Like I said, I don't care about checks on this diagonal. King to f8 is absolutely fine. This knight can't come to e5 because we control that square twice. And yeah, we have some threats here. If my opponent castles to stop the pins on the h-file, That is incredibly risky, and I think if castles, we can probably take on e3 and then take on g3, and you can't take because of queen takes with checkmate. So very, very difficult position for white to navigate here. What should white have done? Well, like I said before, white should not have taken on g6. That was not the right idea. I also think that g3 was the wrong idea. If you want to try and relieve the pressure on the h2 pawn, you probably have to go h3. H3 is probably the way to do it, because yes, you could argue you weaken your dark squares, but you're putting your pawns on light squares, which means that they're not targets for my bishop and my queen, which are controlling this diagonal. By doing what my opponent did, these are massive targets, right? All of this is a big target, and we will have to make it work tactically if we're going to make it work. Like maybe my opponent can play something like bishop to d2 here, so that I can't take and overload this pawn. But there's probably still ways that we can go about winning the position from there. By the way, if you've made it this far in the video and are currently enjoying, I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really motivates me to keep making content for you guys. My opponent takes on e4. I think it's probably easiest just to take. Here, 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 you can't take because of this. Now, maybe we can take on e3 first. And if take, same line. But if this, I mean, the queen's under attack, maybe he can play like queen a4 check, getting his queen out of the way and have to like, well, maybe he can even retreat the bishop, go like bishop back to d3. So let's not overcomplicate things. Let's just take this bishop. I will check the lines with the computer after the game, of course, and see what the computer thinks about what I've done. But yeah, queen a4, I think we just slide our king over. So let's go king to f8. There is no threat to my king at all. We could always put the king on g8 if we really need to. That's not a concern. This knight is under attack. Fortunately, this pawn stops the queen from taking on e4. And my opponent goes knight to e5, which is probably a smart move. Probably a smart move. Because he's stopping my pieces from attacking there. He's also maybe trying to play knight d7. I think we should snap this knight up immediately. And then I think we should snap the bishop up. And then probably just take on e5. Now, if I do take on e5, my opponent can castle queenside. And I'm up a pawn, but my king is a little bit weak. I can maybe walk it to h7, but it's still weak. My opponent's done well to try and navigate this position. He could give a check on this diagonal if he desires. I could play a move like rook to d8, trying to stop my opponent from castling, but then he maybe takes on e4. Maybe he takes on e4. So if I take here, queenside castle, what's the plan? Maybe just king g8. There is rook d7, which is annoying, very annoying actually. So if take queenside castle, what do I do there? Let me think a second. So the problem with doing this is my opponent takes on e4 and goes up a pawn, although these pawns are very weak anyway. So maybe we just go rook to d5, threaten the e5 pawn. If my opponent plays rook to d1 himself, then takes, my opponent can't castle. And then we can play king to e7 and bring the other rook in. If we go here and my opponent takes on a7, he could do that. But I think maybe we just go queen d7, threaten to infiltrate on the d file, and there's not much he can do about that. Oh, this is really difficult to figure out. Very difficult to figure out. I can't let my opponent castle queenside. If he castles queenside, he's good. He could castle kingside. He could. F-files may be an issue. Although maybe I can just play rook d2, threatening rook h2 followed by mate. Tricky, tricky. Maybe if here, queen e5, there's threats of maybe rook h2? And then infiltrating with ideas of giving checks like this. It's got to be rook d8. Regardless of whatever continuation happens, I can't let my opponent castle queenside. I can't allow it. If he plays rook d1 here, I think king e7. I think king e7. If he takes on e4, yeah, he does go rook d1. I think king e7's got to be the move. What if after king e7 he gives a check though? That's probably an issue. Probably an issue. So maybe he takes, and then king e7. Because he can't give a check then. Yeah, let's do it. Currently as well, this rook is tied down to the h2 pawn, which is nice. Of course, if my opponent castles kingside, the king will defend that pawn though. Queen takes. Of course, I can't take here because of mate on d8, so king e7's got to be the move. Got to be. Trying to play rook d8. My opponent may castle. If in this position my opponent castles, what's the plan? Can we get away with taking on e5? He does do it. Can we get away with taking on e5? That's the question. Can we start with rook d8? Well, he can't come to f3 to target f7, which is good. We also, with rook d8, prepare king to f8 to tuck the king away. Rook d8... He can't defend e5. If he brings the queen back over here to try and give me checks, I don't think that's a problem, but maybe we should take on e5 first. If we take on e5, he can't infiltrate on the d file anywhere. All he can do is come to d4. In that case, we probably take him, followed by f5, securing our pawn chain, and we probably win. Probably up a can't trade his queen. Let's take. Let's take. I don't think I'm blundering anything. Now, we're not threatening mate, unfortunately, and we don't have tactics with rook h2. However, we could try and force things with queen h5, threatening mate and threatening a queen trade, but queen h5 can be met with moves like queen to d2, defending mate and avoiding the queen trade. So again, it's difficult. Queen goes to b3, okay. Kind of to be expected. Threatening b7. We could play queen to d5, offering a queen trade. Probably give us a check, though. Probably give us a check. What about b6? What about b6? b6, he can give a check here and fork my king and my a pawn. Queen b3, good move, good move. How do we deal with this? We have to defend our b pawn because we can't allow this. right? That's a problem because we don't have the f6 square for our king. I'd love to play this attacking e3 and defending the diagonal, but my opponent can take on b7. Maybe rook d8. If rook d8, queen b7, rook d7, my opponent can give a check on b4, which is annoying. What about the move b5? Pawn is defended by the queen. He can still give this check, though, winning the a7 pawn. So, okay, I feel like... Well, queen d5, queen a3, check. Can't defend a7. I don't know how we can defend both pawns here. Hmm. What do we do? We can't go for mating ideas or anything because we are going to get mated ourselves if we do that. Queen c7. Check. Here, check. Here takes. I don't see what we're doing there. I don't see what we're doing. Oh, this is so complicated. The only move to defend both pawns is queen b8, but we can't play that. That's way too passive. Hmm. Maybe rook d8 has to be played. And after takes rook d7, if he gives a check here. I think we have to just deal with the consequences. If I'm missing something, either we will find it in the analysis or one of you can drop it in the comments. But I don't see what else we can do. I might have blundered though. Because after this, my opponent can play rook f7. So maybe we have to just drop the king back. And give up the a7 pawn. Oh no, that blunders mate. No, we have to do this. Oh, this is not good. This is not good. Here, 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 here. Ugh, the best we're gonna get is a draw, and even that might be difficult. Damn, maybe we shouldn't have traded everything. Maybe back here there was something better. Maybe rook d8 wasn't the move. Maybe we shouldn't have taken on d1. Or maybe this was untouchable. What else could we have done? Maybe we could have offered a queen trade. Don't know. That it doesn't seem like the right move though. I don't think we can afford a queen trade. We can play king e8 though. And he can't check us here because our queen controls that square. Our opponent's giving us a little bit of lifeline, but we're certainly still worse. We're definitely still worse. We need to try and get our king to h7. That's what we need. That's what we need. But the game is not over, so what is rook f2? h5? Trying to use the light squares. Okay. Queen g5, attacking e3. He can give this check. but I can block and I control the b5 square. What is rook f2? I don't understand that. Queen g5 looks pretty good. Queen g5 check. He can take on a7 with threats of mate on f7, so I can't take on e3. Maybe f5. Or maybe f5. Yeah, I like that. We give our king the f7 square, cut the rook off from the attack. So this rook is out of the game. Out of the game now, which is great because our rook is really powerful. And his king is a little bit weak. Little bit weak. So he does have the g2 square, of course. We are also low on time, but we've been given a little bit of a lifeline. We still stop the check on the b8 square, even though if this check was given, we'd be fine. We can just go to f7. Queen a4 doesn't do anything. It just pins my rook. We do this. Oh, no, he's trying to play this. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So let's move our king. Yeah, okay. Let's move our king. He does defend d1 as well with that move, so that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, if rook d2 is played, I just lose the rook, or I have to trade everything by defending the rook with my queen. Interesting. Yeah, now we just slide over. Or even to f6. Oh no, then the queen can get into f8. So let's not do that. Let's slide over. Blocking every check. There's no checks. And my opponent's king is maybe looking weak, but we'll see. We shall see. The issue is I have a decent pawn majority here, but they're all doubled up. Okay, he stops me from getting to d1 again. Now we're going to try and apply pressure with queen c5. This pawn is pinned, so it isn't actually defending f5, but it's defended by two other pieces, so we're okay. I'm still keeping an eye on a7, so my rook could potentially move, although queen b7 would be annoying. And we're just attacking here. So rook e2 is the move we should expect. Defending. That's what we should expect. Yeah, there we go. Now what? Now what? Maybe we try and do this. I'm going to start with g5. This looks risky, but I think it's our best chance of winning. Maybe we could have gone rook d3 there, eyeing up this pawn. But king f2 and we don't have anything. And also it leaves our king vulnerable, which I don't want to do. I also don't want to trade queens. I also don't want this queen defending this square because I want it to be attacking e3. I want to put pressure on my opponent here. He's playing very, very well. Very, very well. But we need to grind something out of this position. Hopefully I can show you guys how we can grind something. Interesting move. Very interesting move. What happens if we decline? I don't want to trade. Here, can he do this? What happens if we take? Take, take. Rook b7, a3. No, I'm not trading. Not trading. Let's keep this exciting. I might actually take on a2 if I get the opportunity. Still can't do much. It's kind of a threat because if here I could go queen to h1, threatening h2 and queen f3 ideas. Okay, king moves. Yeah, I can just take here, can't I? If this, just drop back. Let's do it. Let's get a pawn. Let's get a pawn. We're going pawn grabbing. Going pawn grabbing. If my opponent tries to attack my rook, then I just drop back. Then I will accept a queen trade, because I'll be up a pawn. So then I will accept a queen trade. Even though my pawns are doubled a little bit, that's probably drawn or winning. Because this is a passed pawn, which is annoying, but... Okay, interesting. Don't know what that does, but let's just defend ourselves. Everything in my position is defended. Everything is defended. Maybe my plan is queen d1, queen h1. That's a decent looking plan. That doesn't do anything, does it? I kind of missed this check. But I think we can just go king f6, and there's no follow-up checks. Here. h4 is scary. I didn't realize that was a move. h4 take. What do we do? Yeah, this was not a good move in hindsight. That was not a good move. What should we have done? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe king g6? Okay, that doesn't do anything though. Now let's do this. Now we have threats. I think. You can give a check on f8. And this would blunder... Well, it wouldn't blunder a rook. But I think this is better. You can give a check on d8. We slide over. There's no more checks. This is so complicated. There's a lot going on. Yeah, it's a good move. Good move. Because he just goes back. And somehow he's okay. How is he okay here? Okay, we're going to do this, I think. Oh, are we? We want a queen trade? I am up a pawn. And I think we can get our pawns rolling well. My king's very active too, so it can get inside my opponent's territory quite easily. Let's push. King over. Let's push. Let's push. Let's push. Let's push. We have to push. Take. I know I'm giving this pawn up. I'm well aware. Let's give a check. I think g4. Locking the pawn in place. Locking the pawn in place. Which locks his king in place. h2 is weak. We have ideas of rook d7, rook d2 with forks going on. Our king is arguably a bit out of the game now, but I think this was necessary because my opponent had ideas of rook f4. Oh wait, no, because that was controlled, so maybe he could only go rook to e3 and then we could infiltrate. Yeah, but then h3 takes, and I can't take because my opponent. Oh, I don't know. That's complicated. Yeah, but here I have g5, and my king is safe from checks. Maintains defense of g4. If I get this move, I think I'm winning. Yeah, if I go here, then he's going to go here, but then I can go here! Oh! Wait, if here, he has to retreat. He has to retreat. But then we can try and bring our king in, maybe. Because his rook will be tied down to defense. Oh my. Yeah, let's bring our king. If I can get this king over to like b3, for example, we probably win. Interesting. Okay. God, I don't know if we have anything or not. Or maybe we can do this. Go after h2. Rook h7. King back. Wait. Let's start with this. Because if rook h7 then, and king back, then we have king e3, and it's game over. Game over. I'm sure that's game over, because our king is way too close now. Jeez, this is so complicated. Because my opponent is also threatening just to push, 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 push. And if that pawn gets too far down the board, it's probably a draw. Like, if this pawn was on c6 right now, it might be a draw. Maybe. But because it's a while away still, I have time. And time is exactly what I need. Yeah, rook h7, no? There's no checks on my king. Because e2 is covered. And you can't go to d4. So rook h7, if I get this move in, it's game over. Completely game over if I get that move. I think they're there. Yeah, he goes back, but then I get in. Still no checks. If he pushes. Well, then I have rook f7. Maybe I have rook f7 now. Check there. Oh, how is this not winning? My opponent's trying to do this, I think. I'm going to attack the b4 pawn. Because I need to try and get to his back rank. That's the goal. That's the goal. If he gives me a check, I will just drop back. Okay. Can't do this because of this. You know what? Let's bring the king. Let's bring the king. Let's turn our focus. c6. We have to do this, right? We could give a check, actually. Check there. Let's give a check. Let's give a check. Let's give a check. King f2 might blunder the game. Yeah, he doesn't go king f2. I don't know what the best moves are here. This is so complicated. Here, trying to go here. Here, here. I can't take because of check. Oof. No, that's not the move. Or maybe it is. No, it's... I don't think so. I know what my opponent's plan is. I think it's rook b2 here, here. No, it isn't. Then it doesn't work, surely. Because I just defend and I'm about to win the pawn. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, now we're winning. Oh my goodness. Because I also have the a pawn. I also have the a pawn. Wow, my opponent has put in such a good shift there. That was so difficult. Now the game isn't quite over. It's not quite over. We still have to win this, of course. We're up a pawn, but I think just because of my f3 pawn just tying his king down forever, and the fact that we're about to win my opponent's last threatening pawn, it's game over. I guarantee there were times in this endgame where I could have played a lot better or my opponent could have played a lot better, and we will find out exactly how in the post-game analysis. But okay, my opponent has disconnected. I assume that he is just wasting down the clock because he's realized that he's lost. Wow. I will pause the video to save you guys the time, but if he does play on, I will of course resume it. Okay, so my opponent did abandon the game. The computer thinks it's only minus 0.7 in this position. We will find out exactly why in the analysis, because that is kind of crazy. Yeah, let's just get straight into it. This is going to be a very interesting analysis. Okay, so just before we begin, I want to say a massive well done to my opponent. He did incredibly well there. But I don't think at any point we were properly losing, so that's good. But we did throw away a couple of advantages. Let's find out how. So e4, c6, bishop e2, very weird, but of course the move is d5, takes, and d4, and we go into a type of exchange Caro Kann. Now in the exchange Caro Kann, typically, in this fashion, white goes bishop d3, stopping my bishop from coming to f5, and the queen stops it from coming to g4. Knight f6 or knight c6 from black, so let's say knight f6, preparing the move bishop to g4, trying to get the bishop to an active square. And the computer likes to move c3 here, but I think the most annoying thing for black to deal with, and what most people play at my level, at 2000 elo, is to move h3, taking away the g4 square from the bishop. So after knight to c6, knight to f3, there is no pin on the knight, and this is actually kind of an annoying position for black to play. Now the best move is knight b4, going after the bishop. If this check is given, of course, bishop to d7. The best move here is for white to castle. Part of the reason you play c3 is to stop this move. Takes, and black is okay, but still this bishop is stuck. So e6 has to be played. The bishop's a little bit locked inside the pawn chain, but it's an equalish position, as you would expect an exchange Caro Kann to be. But bishop e2, and we get this position with knight to f3, which allows bishop to f5, just getting on this nice diagonal. c3, knight f6, the position is completely equal. There's like very minute things that the computer wants, like here it wants knight to e4, rather than what I played. I just thought bishop f4, and I don't see what I've gained, and I'm going to have to challenge the bishop anyway. So I go e6, which is still fine, knight h4, and here I play bishop g6, which is considered an inaccuracy, and the computer actually quite likes my opponent's move, which surprises me. Knight d2 best move, bishop d6, knight f3, g3 is better here, and if queen c7, knight f3, which isn't that what happened in the game anyway, that's exactly what happened in the game, and then knight e4, we're playing this well, bishop e3, computer wants me to castle queenside or kingside, I choose knight to e7, which is still fine, bishop d3, knight f5, and here we have a lot of tactical ideas. Let's say my opponent plays, I don't know, a3. you can see the eval bar swing in my favor because I'm threatening knight takes e3. Your queen is under attack, so you have to take. And then we are going to play knight takes g3. You cannot take because I will take your rook, so you have to move the rook, and then I can just drop the knight back, and I'm up a pawn. The h2 pawn is very weak. Your king is very weak. You can't castle kingside anymore, and it's a very, very comfortable position for black. So my opponent should have played bishop d2, which is one of the moves I mentioned in that position. And it kind of gets rid of my attacking plans because this pawn is no longer overloaded. I'm supposed to castle queenside here, and I mean the game goes on. Like queen c2, knight d2, queen d2. I still think I slightly prefer black in this position, personally. But it's kind of up for debate. But my opponent takes on e4, and I was initially thinking, well, if I take on e3 and we have takes, we get the exact same position. But what if after knight e3 my opponent gives a check, which is actually the best move, and if my king moves, he can just retreat his bishop. And this is what I was saying in the game. The computer agrees with me. The knight has to now retreat, and it's better for white. The position's better for white. So taking on... Oh wait, No, I didn't take on e3. I took on e4. I don't know why the game just did that. Which is the best idea? Queen a4 check. Okay, here queen c6 was better. And if queen c6, bc6, now if knight e5... the queens are off the board, and after this happens, I get rook d8 in first, and I'm going to get to d3, rook d1. Oh, I also have rook d5, and if you take, then I just fix my pawn structure, and I gobble up this pawn. So you can't take, let's say king e2, then I just win the e5 pawn. Makes sense. So this is what I should have gone for. I instead moved the king, which is still okay. Knight e5. Take, 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 take. This is the best for black. Here I go rook d8, which is wrong. Best move is king g8. Well, rook d8 is actually fine. See, I thought that if white queenside castled, I was a little bit screwed. Apparently I go for this, and if rook d7, which I was concerned about, I have to find the move b5, attacking the queen, queen c2. And then I throw caution to the wind and play a5. Okay then. That is very, very tough to play. I chose rook d8 because I thought, if my opponent can't queenside castle, I've got good winning chances here. He went rook d1, which is the best. I take. Queen takes is a mistake because of one move. There's one move here that wins for black, and I missed it. Try and find it. Rook h5. I suppose you give the king the h7 square, and you threaten e5 with the rook. White can't defend this pawn. If white does something like castles, rook e5, I'm just up a pawn. And the king is going to be relatively safe. King e7 is what I chose. The wrong way to go about the position entirely. My opponent castles. I take on e5. Queen b3, best move. Here I go rook d8. That's a mistake. So the best moves were rook b8, which I considered, but I thought that's so weak. And he has queen a3 anyway, and he's going to take on a7. And then what do I do? Here I have to find the move f5, which is probably the best move in this position, f5. Let my opponent take on b7. King f6, I assume, is the move. And if queen a7, then rook d8. Not gonna lie, I don't quite understand this. I don't quite understand it. Like rook f2, stopping rook d2, check, king up, queen d6. And if my opponent starts pushing his pawns, let's say he just keeps pushing, I have to find Rook A1. But I can't play a move like queen to D1, surely. So my opponent has to trade queens with me. Queen D4, C D4, Rook A6, and it's an equal endgame. Of course, the computer finds a way to make it an equal endgame. I chose Rook D8 because I thought Queen B7, Rook D7, and I'm okay. Now, I did realize that Rook F7, and I probably lose. I have to take the Rook. Queen F7, I was going to either play King to F6 or King G8. King G8 is the best move. And here my pawns are so bad. I'm also down a pawn, and the C pawn is going to march through at some point. My king is not getting mated. A4, King H7, well, A5 drops a pawn, I suppose. It's still difficult for white to convert this, to be fair, but he went Queen to B4 check instead. I went King E8, Rook F2, and here I find the best move F5 at last. So I am actually slightly better here. Slightly better. Queen A4 is an inaccuracy. King E7 is not the best. Queen C5 is better. I was concerned about Rook D2, but I just realized I can take on E3 with check. So I don't know why I was concerned about that. And if the Rook goes to F2, then just King E7, and I'm completely winning. Okay, well, King E7, Queen B4 check, King F7, Queen B3 is an inaccuracy, Queen C5 is the move, which I find, Rook E2 defending. And we go G5, that is the best move. Wow, okay. So my plan with G5 is, let's say my opponent starts pushing pawns. I'm going to go F4. And if takes takes, you can't take because of the pin. And I don't want to take on E3. That is not my plan. Let's say a move like Queen C2 for argument's sake. I'm not taking on F3. My advantage doesn't disappear, but it dissipates. My plan is F3, attacking the rook. And I'm trying to cause a headache for my opponent by taking squares away from his king and having a constant threat in the position. Of course, my opponent could do something better than Rook F2. He could probably play Rook E1, and he maintains defense of the E3 pawn, but the position is still probably lost, because look how passive white is. G5's the best move, okay, that's hilarious. But okay, he goes Queen B4. Queen D5. I should have gone Rook D1 check, apparently. And if King F2, then Queen D5. And there's no check on my king. I suppose that makes sense. I go Queen D5, King F2. And taking on A2 is an inaccuracy. I should have gone for this plan immediately, I guess. Yeah, Queen H1. So I had the right idea. But when I did end up playing it, my opponent got his queen to the H file, so it didn't work quite as well. And this is the best line for my opponent, which, I mean, I assume I give a check here? I don't know. It's my opponent's king is completely stranded, though. Completely stranded. I mean, if I get the rook to H8, for example, it's game over. So I take on A2, though. Queen B8, Queen D5 is an inaccuracy, Queen B1 is better, I assume going for the same plan, but we go Queen D5, my opponent goes Queen H8, Queen D1 is best move, Queen H5, King F6. Now I thought H4 was an issue, and my plan was to take, and after Queen takes, what's the best idea? King G6, there are somehow no checks, and if G4, I can't really take because of take, I have to find the move Rook D2, only move. Threatening mating ideas. Queen H5, King F6. There is GF5 because the queen defends the rook, but I think I can just trade. Can I trade everything? Take, take, take. My king stops the C pawn. I get two passed pawns over here. So the best line is something like this. G5, I stop the pieces, and then here. And the idea is to break up my opponent's pawns, win both of them, and then come back over here and win the game. Queen H8 is played by my opponent, not H4. I go Queen H1, not the best idea. Rook D8 is better. That makes sense, because it's still defended by the queen. So if the queen comes back to H5, then queen h1, and now if h4, I have queen h2. King e1 is the only move that stops rook d1, but then I have queen to g1 mate. Okay, I didn't go rook to d8. I didn't find that. Queen f8 check, rook f7, queen d8 check, king g7, no more checks. Queen back to h8, queen f3 check, king e1. And this throws the game away. Throws the game away. I needed to go back to h1, and after king f2, what's the idea? f4. Oh, I don't know why I didn't consider this. I don't know why I didn't consider that. That's completely winning. The king has no moves. If gf4, gf4, there's no checks on my king. There's nothing for my opponent here. It's just game over. Queen h3, fe3, king e3, and then just rook f3, winning the queen at the very, very least. I didn't find it. I panicked. In low time, I panicked. Trade the queens. Now, to be fair, this is actually better for black. White had to decline the queen trade with queen e8 attacking e6. Makes sense. He went for the queen trade, though. King f2, e5, inaccuracy, but okay. King g2. f4 throws the game, really. Rook c7 is the move. Oh, is the point to go rook c4 and then f4, so this is defended? Is that the point? h3? No. I need to go a5, rook c2, king g6, c4, king f6. Just bring my king over here and leave these pawns just as a constant threat. I suppose that makes sense. b3, rook b7, c5, take here, 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 check, king f7, and if rook c5, king e6, if here I just come to d5 and I'm winning, I suppose. Huh, I got a bit too bullish. I played f4, take, 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 the game is equal, f3 check, king f2. I'm finding the best moves, but the game is equal. g5, rook e4, rook d7 is the best move. Now white has to stop me from getting in. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. He has to stop me from getting in somehow. So he chooses rook d4. What? Oh, why didn't I just take? The king just comes around, scoops the pawn up, scoops this pawn up. This king can never leave because I just promote. That was really silly of me. I don't know why I didn't do that. Oh, I'm an idiot. Rook d2. King g6. b4. King f5. c4. King e4. I'm trying to bring my king in. c5. Rook h7. Threaten the pawn on h2. King e1. King e3. We're trying to pose threats. Rook a2. Good move from my opponent. If he tries to do something like rook d6, then f2 check. Here, this is a bit of an issue. Bit of an issue for my opponent. He plays well. He goes rook a2, keeps his rook on the second rank to disallow f2. Rook b7, attacking the b4 pawn. Rook b2, king d3, c6. This is all equal. Rook e7 check, king f1. Now, I thought we might be winning if we get this, but I don't know why I thought that, because my opponent just goes king e1. It's a good job that didn't happen, although I hope I would have seen that. I don't know why I even considered that. King c3, rook a2, we take on b4, and the computer still thinks that white is drawing, but he has to find rook b2. This is what I was saying in the game, and after this, he's got to come to b7. And after takes, he gets rid of my a-pawn. Yes, if anyone is going to win, it's probably black after king d4, but it's difficult to convert. The computer thinks it's equal, and I also have 20 seconds left. So who knows what would happen, but he goes king f2. And turns out that king b5 again throws the game because of rook b2. If I take on c6, There is one move that draws the game for white. Try and find the move. This is a tough move. Rook b4. Going after g4 to get rid of the defender of f3. Only move. And if I go rook f7, rook g4, and something like rook f5, trying to defend all my pawns. h4, take. a5, I'm up a pawn. So it's a theoretical draw. Theoretical. h5, take. Even still, this is like the only move here. Like, white only has one move to draw the game. And it's king f4 move. Point being that if the rook moves anywhere on this file, you win the pawn. And if the rook goes to h5, then the king gets in. It's not cut off anymore, right? Because the way you win this with black is to cut off the king. So if white does anything else, like let's say rook a6, you just bring not to c4, because apparently that loses. No, sorry, draws the game. You have to go king d4. Keep the king cut off. Keep the pawn defended. What's wrong with this? No, not that. This. King f4. If rook d5, king e4. I guess I can't make progress. And if I go for this, my opponent just sacks the rook and it's a draw. To be honest, no way these moves are being found. So after king b5, if my opponent doesn't find this, and here he just allowed the time to run out, essentially resigning. If he doesn't find this insane sequence with takes, rook b4, etc., then he loses. Even here, though, I can play a move like king c5, stopping this. And after rook b7, rook c6, rook a7, the game's not over. I still have winning chances. But my opponent didn't see the ways to try and draw, and I really don't blame him. That was, wow, a very, very difficult game. A very successful opening. Very successful opening. A very tough late middle game and end game, which thankfully we convert because we just kept putting pressure on my opponent. A couple of wins missed, but that's what happens when you're in low time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did and you haven't already, please drop a like and subscribe, and check out the video appearing over on your screen here, because I think you're really going to enjoy it.